And a very pleasant good morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Morning Briefing here on NoFilter.net, Caffeine TV, various other platforms. I'm Jeff DeForest, along with one Mike Lubie. It's looking good today, Lubie. How you feeling? You feeling good?
Yes, sir. Big win last night for our local team, so I'm super stoked.
That was the premier game, probably in all of team sports last night. Rangers and the Florida Panthers battling for supremacy, not just in the Eastern Conference now, but overall in the league. The team that emerged from that game with the win was going to have the highest number of points. Rangers would have tied up the Panthers had they won the game. The Panthers, 5-on-5, there was a handicapper. I was looking at his suggestion to go ahead and lay your money on the Panthers in that game at Madison Square Garden. And he had really scoped it out almost precisely as it happened, saying that the Panthers were a much better team in 5-on-5 situations, that the Rangers kind of pick their spots a little bit and take advantage of mistakes, usually scoring their goals on power plays or turnovers or things of that nature. It's pretty much the way it went. The Rangers with a couple of power play goals. They go to the third period in a dead heat at 2 apiece. Panthers pull away and end up with an empty net goal, winning it 4-2. Now, the top team, believe it or not, in the Stanley Cup Finals last year, in totally improbable Cinderella-like fashion, and come right back this year and now have the best team late in the season, the best team point-wise anywhere in the NHL. Definitely a team to watch, and they're right here in our backyard, and nobody gives a fuck, Lubie. That's the beauty of it. The only ice people care about here is in the bottom of a martini glass. So that was always the big joke, whether or not hockey was going to make it in South Florida. All right, this is kind of interesting. We do a lot of interviews, and we used to take, during our radio years, we used to take authors on and different people that maybe were off the beaten path from sports just to break it up a little bit. But we would hope that maybe they had some kind of tie-in to sports, that we could make the interview a little bit more relevant to our sports fever-pitched audience that just couldn't consume enough when it came to X's and O's and mock drafts and things of that nature. So we did an interview with Buzz Bissinger, who was, and this was to promote a book. He had a book out called The Mosquito Bowl. Of course, people know Buzz Bissinger primarily from his big hit Friday Night Lights, which was turned into a very successful television series. He's written many other things, very diverse in his approach, very intelligent guy. And you thought, all right, this would be kind of interesting. The Mosquito Bowl was an interesting story about two groups that had been athletic in the United States, that had been deployed in the armed forces and got together and played a football game against each other. These were guys with serious athletic credentials. They played against each other just to kind of, establish a little bit of spirit while they were deployed in a very ugly situation at war. Interesting story all the way around. But before we got to that, Buzz Bissinger started talking. Well, we didn't even know. Did we know that he was a big Seahawks fan? We didn't even know he lived in Seattle, Lubie. I mean, do you recall the circumstances where this particular clip came up? Because it came right around the time that Russell Wilson, who was now, he was told he was going to be released when the new NFL season starts. I believe it's March 13th, that he is going to receive his release from the Denver Broncos. Now, that looked like a move that was not hard to anticipate, didn't it? Considering he was on the bench for the last couple of games, didn't seem to really get along with Sean Payton, who was there to stay. And in spite of the fact, and I love this, Lubie, when this happens. I don't know about you, but especially if it doesn't happen to your team. It's not like we signed Mike Wallace, the wide receiver with the Dolphins, as a free agent. It turned out to be a bust. Or Ndamukong Suh turned out to be a big bust and a huge mistake, damaging to the salary cap, bozoic move by the front office, the kind of thing that set your franchise back several years, and maybe you never recover from it. I love this, though, when it happens to another team. And in the case of the Denver Broncos, they traded, 2 first-round picks. They traded 3 players and 4 draft picks total. So they traded their first-round picks in 2022, 2023, 3 players and a couple of other draft picks to get Russell Wilson, and then subsequently signed him to an extension, a 5-year extension for $252 million. The general manager there is a guy named George Patton. Not the general, but George Patton. Obviously, he doesn't have the same acumen for putting a team or an army of players together that the great George Patton did, leading all of those great men into battle. Here we are in the battlefields again, Lubie. But we get Bissinger on the air, and I hope this translates well on the no-filter format. We don't know. We may have to bag this thing, and it may turn out to be a grand experiment that just is destined for failure. But we were talking to Buzz Bissinger about we were going to promote his upcoming book, and he offered us up his opinion about the Russell Wilson trade, which we had no idea at the time that he had an opinion on Russell Wilson. But you could not be more clairvoyant in terms of anticipating what was going to happen. And I would have to say, Lubie, it was one of the few times where doing an interview, a sports interview especially, where you're surprised by the answer or the comment that came your way. So I'm trying to load that up. This is Buzz Bissinger, the author. Friday Night Lights, the Mosquito Ball, I think, is his latest offering. Came out about a year or two ago. And this was Buzz Bissinger on Russell Wilson before he went to the Denver Broncos and played it down. We welcome Buzz Bissinger to the program. Buzz, how are you? Thanks so much for joining us here on After Hours.
Hey, I'm good. Quite an introduction. I appreciate it. I'm good. How are you guys?
You're doing well. It's well deserved.
We're doing all right. Yeah, I got to go with the geographical thing, though, because you spend a lot of your time in the Pacific Northwest. I don't know. Is that Seattle? That your living part?
Now we're in the middle of nowhere. We're basically in the southwestern corner of Washington State, near the border with Oregon. Fundamentally, where Lewis and Clark ended up. My wife is from the Northwest, and we found this place and said, let's go for it.
Yeah, because I was watching, even in a sophisticated part of the state like Seattle, the crowd, many of the people that were at that Seahawks game, seeing Russell Wilson come back, looked like they were deckhands on Deadliest Catch. I mean, it's a strange group of people.
Yeah, but, they're good. They're good fans, though, and I'm telling you, they rattle those guys a little bit. And I would not take all your money and put it on Russell Wilson. That's all I say. I think he's a shadow of what he once was, and I can't believe what Denver's paying him.
He looked like the maitre d' at Spago's or something, didn't he? Did you see the post-game press conference? I mean, what is this guy wearing?
Yeah, that's good. Let's just talk football. Forget the book. Who cares? Well, he's always been a sharp dresser. I follow the game probably because I play fantasy football like everyone else. I'm glad the Seahawks won. I've always liked Pete Carroll, and everyone is on him saying that last year he's lost control. And they played gutty, and they played well. I just think Russell's not. This has nothing to do with anything. The problem with contracts in all sports is they're being paid on past performance, and they really pay very little attention to how old they are and how much they have left. And so, a guy like Wilson's getting paid a lot for certain skills that I don't think he has anymore. They pay way too much when their best years may be well behind them.
Well said, Buzz Bissinger, man. Why isn't he a GM in the league? Are you kidding me? Holy Mike Tannenbaum. What are we talking about here?
You nailed it.
Wilson's time in Denver never went the way that either side anticipated, as his completion percentage was the worst of his career at 60.5% in 2022, Lubie, and he threw a career-low 16 touchdown passes. The quarterback didn't do enough either in 2023 to win over Peyton, and it quickly seemed like the marriage between the two sides was headed for a divorce, with Wilson recently confirming in October that the Broncos had threatened to bench him if he didn't waive the injury guarantee on his salary. So it was getting ugly, Lubie. It was one of those things where, they were telling you, kind of moving you in the direction like they do in broadcasting. Your last show was great, by the way. And by the way, it was your last show.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Anyway, Wilson and the Denver Broncos parting ways. Do you love it when a big deal just goes up in smoke? When it happens. When I remember the first time I really kind of noticed. I mean, ridiculous. There have been bad trades and horrible lopsided trades throughout the history of sports, but where a guy got what seemed to be a ridiculous pile of money. This is late 70s, Lubie. I'm covering the Dodgers for a paper outside of Los Angeles. We covered the Dodgers and the Angels. And so I'm covering the Dodgers, and they signed a guy named Dave Goltz, a free agent, one of the original free agents, one of the original guys to go Neil O'Donnell and take advantage of free agency and franchise tags and things like that. And Goltz had won 20 games for the Twins a couple of years prior and then had double-digit victories the two subsequent seasons. But it didn't exactly look like you were getting Sandy Koufax with Dave Goltz. He gets $400,000, which was an outrageous amount of money at the time, to sign with the Dodgers. And then he went 7-11 his first year with the Dodgers, 2-7 his second year, and whoosh, that was it. You could say what? Did the Yankees do this with Giancarlo Stanton? $300 million worth of a contract, and what did they get out of him? They had maybe one or two exciting, short spells where he was hitting home runs, and the rest of the time he's been injured. I guess you could look at what Ben Simmons which is there a headline in the paper every day? Simmons likely to return tomorrow night. Simmons could be back by Thursday. Simmons. This guy has played 15 games for the Nets this year. 15 games. Hasn't really done much in those. $38 million.
Golly.
Meanwhile, I mean, James Harden, who was involved in the transaction when the Nets unloaded Harden and got Simmons as part of that deal, I don't know if they just took on Simmons thinking, well, maybe it'll work out somehow. But you would have to say that not only did they get shafted when they acquired Harden, but they got shafted when they let him go.
Yeah.
The Brooklyn Nets, which is why that team seems to be in a total state of disarray and discombobulation as they, once again, have nothing to offer their fans and find ways to lose, it seems like virtually every night, to teams that don't even look like they're trying anymore. And that's been the fate of the Brooklyn Nets. So what, did they make the big mistake when they got rid of Kenny Atkinson, head coach? They've had a series of head coaches since that time. Haven't really been able to get it together, but going all in on Kyrie Irving and James Harden, and they also were all in on Kevin Durant, but at least Durant lived up and measured up to what you would anticipate he was capable of doing. The other two guys were complete flakes when they were with the Brooklyn Nets, and that's it. Ruination of a franchise. Did Denver bury itself with this Russell Wilson deal? What do you think?
Look,
how long does it take to recover from a bozo move like that?
I don't know. The problem is they gave up a lot of picks and put a lot of money into it. I mean, and they're eating a lot of dead money. It's actually, they won't have him on the roster, but he's still going to screw with their cap. So I don't know. Look, they needed a quarterback. It seemed like they had all the roster except for a quarterback. It felt like he still was a good quarterback. I mean, he fell off a cliff and was never the same.
No takers for him. Nobody wanted to make a deal with Denver for him. I guess they could anticipate that they were going to release him. And not only that, but if they did release him, Denver's going to have to pay him the $40 million he's owed this year. Wow. I mean, you talk about one tragic move, turning a franchise around. How did they recover from that? The other thing that's out there, too, and I always love this. I know you're an even bigger fan of it than I am, because I just love the ridiculousness of the speculation. And to garner any attention when you put out a mock draft, you have to predict something outrageous is going to happen.
Yes.
Otherwise, nobody cares about your mock draft. If you were just sitting there listing Caleb Williams number 1, and Drake May number 2, and maybe Daniels number 3, nobody's going to pay any attention to what you're doing. You're just rattling off the chalk in order. So there's speculation from this one gentleman whose name I didn't catch on the byline, but on one of the websites, CBSSports.com, they have a mock draft up where the Patriots trade up to get McCarthy at number 3.
There you go. A second straight horrible quarterback. Good job.
What would be the point of that? I mean, is he not the reincarnation of Mac Jones?
I mean, he's better than Mac Jones, but he's not good. Like, Michigan had plenty of talent, and the last 5-6 games they ran the ball all year. Like, I mean, if he's this great quarterback, why were they conservative and scared to throw it? Like, I mean, I don't know. He's big, he's strong, and can run, so he'll kill all these combine bullshit. And I guess he's doing well at the interviews. But did you watch them and him play? Like, when did that stop mattering? Like,
Bit of an erratic arm, you would have to say.
Yeah, he's inconsistent as hell. He was average as a quarterback. He may be good in interviews. He may be this big strapping dude. He was average. Like for some reason, the actual playing barely matters. Like it's like freaking weird. The guy.
You never thought of Michigan winning because of their quarterback play.
No, they did the opposite. They ran constantly.
So do we need to do something like that to gather some attention? Come up with just an absurd scenario? What is the likelihood of that happening? That the Patriots trade up to number 3, which would cost them substantial either draft capital and or whatever else they had to offer, which apparently at this point in time isn't much. It's not like they have a stuffed treasure chest of players and assets. They were horrible last year. Belichick, it doesn't even come back to the team this year. And if they traded up to number 3 to draft McCarthy, would you not think that there was some kind of self-sabotage involved, that maybe somebody had pictures of Bob Kraft coming out of yet another Asian spa?
But
that would be the only thing that could trigger that.
Where are they now? Aren't they 3 now?
Do they have to trade into that spot?
I think
they might be number 3. It's possible.
They're 3. They're 3. People have them taking Daniels, which I think is a massive overreach. But at least Daniels was good. So if you're going to reach on a dude that was good. They're at 3, and that's the thing is McCarthy should be like a second round, maybe late first, just because you're taking a flyer on him. and he's like flying up draft boards. So, and you know them, they love overdrafting quarterbacks. That's become their thing now.
Well, at least they can't put it on Belichick that they made a
no, hey,
mistake there
Belichick.
at the position. All right, good stuff all the way around. Congratulations, too, to the Florida Panthers for going out there,
Yes.
beating the Rangers last night. Number one team in
Logic.
all of the sport, the entire
Yes.
sport. Number one team in the world, the Florida Panthers right now. We'll see if they can sustain it. They've never really enjoyed this kind of thing before, where they were genuinely great during the regular season. And they're on an hellacious run right now. So we'll see if they can sustain that. But nice turnaround. We talked about it last week a little bit. This guy, Bill Zito, general manager, doesn't rest on his laurels, doesn't stand pat. But we know that the NHL is the Wild West when it comes to trades and deals. And he goes out there and retools the team a little bit on the, I guess you would say, the bottom end. But did a great job. And comes up with a team that's just dynamite. Very tough to go against night after night after night. And they're on an incredible run right now where I think they've won 15 out of 17, something along those lines. We're really playing some razor-sharp hockey right now. Appropriate pun there, Libby. We have to run. Buzz Bissinger, I hope that came across well, but he called it. He said Russell's not the same, and these guys are making a tragic mistake, and boom, the Denver Broncos fall right into the abyss and now have to dig their way out. Who knows how long that's going to take. All right, we will see you guys tomorrow, the next edition of the Morning Briefing. For Mike Lubitz, I'm Jeff DeForest. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time right here on Caffeine TV at nofilter.net.